morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Doula Specialized Services RFP. Do see a lot of familiar names in the attendee list, and I also see some new names. So welcome. My name is Victor Santiago. I am the writer of this RFP, and I am the program lead for this RFP. It was released October 14th. I can tell you, it took a lot of work to get here, but I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad we're here too. On the call with me is Tom Mose on the technical side, and also Julia Talbot. So just some housekeeping notes. All of you are on mute, just because this is a webinar and not to have any crosstalk. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop it in the chat box as we go along, but we won't get to them till after the presentation, and we'll definitely answer as many as we can. If we don't get to your question, we will put it in the addendum that will be released later on accompanying this RFP. Also, if you have any technical issues, please put it in the chat box, and we'll do our best to figure that out. Okay, throw it to Julia.
Hi, my name is Julia Talbot. I'll be doing the last part of the presentation today, where we basically just go over the technical aspects of how to put in your application in the eProcurement website, and then we'll go to questions. So we're going to start off today with just an overview of the RFP itself for Doula Specialized Services. I think Victor can attest that we're really excited to have this one go on the street, and it's a neat program, and hopefully you'll want to apply to provide this services that's so very critical to Chicago and Chicago's young families. So let's get going.
Great, thank you, Julia. So this is the agenda we're going to go through today, and let's get started. So if you've looked at the RFP, so if you've looked at the RFP, this will be familiar to you. The RFP is going to look up to 6 entities in Chicago that can provide doula services to low-income first-time pregnant moms under the age of 25 who may have other risk factors. These are some of the risk factors that we've highlighted here, but we'll get to some of them, to other ones, a more substantial list. And you can also propose some too, but we'll get to that later. Some of the ones that are highlighted here would be teen moms, homelessness, substance abuse, African American, ESL, and underlying medical conditions. You should already be a PI home visiting program, because Doula is funded through PI. It's a supplemental program to home visiting, and so either funding through us or ISB for an existing doula mom. The purpose of the RFP is to provide doula services as a supplemental program for PI within an existing PI-funded evidence-based home visiting program. And then once the doula service has concluded for that family, hopefully we're able to transition them to a long-term PI home visiting model to continue to provide a continuum of care. So a little background before we get started on Doula. So if you're familiar with our program, you know that we administer for the Head Start program for the city of Chicago. We've been doing it, I believe, for as long as Head Start has been around, and that's 55 years. So I think we were one of the first ones to get funding for Head Start. We've had a lot of changes in the last few years, and so one of the big ones was consolidation in 2017 And I know many of you remember that when the Office of Community Partnerships at Chicago Public Schools merged with us at DFSS to provide a central hub for early childhood, the administration of early childhood in Chicago. And a lot of that staff came over to us in a leadership role, and two of the leaders of the Office of Community Partnerships at CPS, Rima Malhotra and Sue Reynolds. I don't know if you're all familiar with that. They came over too for a little while. They've since left to pursue other, interests, but they were instrumental in the consolidation process and transferring everything over to, the city of Chicago and getting things up and running. So a component of that was the what we call the innovative models. That came over to us as well, and that was a segment of about 5 to 6 agencies that did, non-traditional PI. A lot of the agencies are, let's say, Maryville, Thresholds, Women's Treatment Center, Erickson doing the Fussy Baby Network. We also had UIC, which did Healthy Steps as well. So they all did a sort of home visiting version of PI, but not the standard PI. And they did it for these special populations, women with substance abuse, families in crisis, incarcerated parents, so et cetera, et cetera. It was this niche population, and that model came over to us, and we had that since we consolidated in 2017. And Doula was part of that as well. And the Ounce of Prevention has been our partner in Doula since then. And I think there are some agencies here who were partnered with the Ounce to provide those Doula services. Like I said, there are about six of those programs that were partnered with the Ounce. And so the innovative model, and there have been a lot of changes since then. And so the innovative model, unfortunately, will be phased out. But we are going to continue with Doula because we see the importance of it, and here in the department, and we're going to hopefully build that muscle along with you. So yeah, one of the stumbling blocks that we had with the RFP was subcontracting. So the Ounce was able to subcontract for services, but typically early childhood block grant dollars are given directly to the service provider. And so this will be the case for Doula programming moving forward. And we were scheduled to do this RFP last year along with the Chicago Early Learning RFP, but it obviously got delayed. So we are releasing it now. And so that's a little background. There we were, and now here we are. So the goals of our program is to improve birth outcomes and promote attachment by providing prenatal support and education and support during the labor and delivering process. That's through postnatal home visits, also through postnatal home visits aimed at promoting strong parent-child relationships and paving the way for a smooth transition to long-term home visiting services. Like I sort of mentioned earlier, Doula for a lot of early childhood programs is a front door to the early childhood program, to a long-term home visiting, and then moving towards center-based programming. And so Doula services should recruit and serve the most vulnerable families, supporting them to stay enrolled in their program as long as the parent chooses. So let's touch on some priority communities and risk factors in the RFP. As you know, we are in the midst of a pandemic, and so PI funding, eligibility for that is 200% of the federal poverty level. But for this RFP, we've added some other risk factors that we wanted to look at. We also wanted to look at infant mortality rates in certain communities. And here, this is listed in the RFP as well. You can see some of the communities that we're really targeting, either based on infant mortality rates or high COVID mortality rates. And we denoted them either with a star or with an asterisk or another one of those corn things. And so, yeah, so there's some communities, let's say like Austin, which has a high infant mortality rate and also had a high COVID mortality rate, was hit hard, particularly by COVID. So those are the kinds of communities that we'd be looking at to provide doula services. And we think that these would be the most impactful, some of the most impactful in the city. So again, the previous slide was about communities, and now let's hone in on the population. So the populations that we're looking at are first-time pregnant mothers under the age of 25 who may have other risk factors, and I think we touched on this earlier. And below are some of the ones that we are particularly interested in. Again, teens, women of color, homeless, having substance abuse issues, single mom, ESL, or if they have underlying medical conditions, or if there are other risk factors that you want to propose and have evidence that the doula program has, your doula program has made an impact on it. So this is the target population that we are looking at. I know that historically the doula program that we funded was started because of the high incidences of teen pregnancy. That since has, sharply declined, not only in Chicago but throughout the country. And so I think a lot of our programs have pivoted to serve other at-risk individuals, other at-risk families. So I think this is an opportunity to pivot and see and see what other types of families can benefit from doula services that are obviously eligible for the program. So the next few slides, I'm going to talk about the program requirements. We're just going to hit on some of the highlights, but there's more in the RFP once you go through it. So these are some of the qualifications that we're looking for from the doula program as far as a program supervisor. And these are aligned with our Chicago Early Learning Standards as well. If you haven't seen them, they're on our website, and we can probably put that link in below while we're doing answering the questions. And so these are just the qualifications that we're looking at for the doula, for the home visitor that works with the doula, and also the medical consultant. Again, these are other program requirements integrated with the doula will be integrated with the PI home visiting model. PI home visiting model will use either the Healthy Families or Parents as Teachers curriculum. Obviously, the critical role of the doula is to be present during the birth. I know there's been some challenges right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but that is a critical role for them. So the caseload is 20 to 23 throughout the course of the year, but it's a static caseload at one time of 9 to 12 per doula. The doula intervention, it lasts for 5 months. Typically, ideally, it'll begin at the 3rd trimester and goes through 2 months after birth, and then the child is then transitioned to a long-term home visiting program to continue the care. The PI home visiting programs offering doula services must at least maintain 3 FTE home visitors per every one doula. And then we're going to be asking that you document all doula services through our data system, which is currently COPA. And like I mentioned earlier, there are more detailed requirements in the RFP. Let's take a look at the performance goals and the outcomes. So our outcomes for this program, our goal is to, again, support the development of a strong parent-child relationship that serves as a foundation for the child's health and development, and also that they support a healthy birth and promote the healthy growth in the child. So that's our overall goal of the Doula program, is to have healthy birth and to support the mom as she's going through this process. Some of the things that will be the outputs that we'll be looking at in this program are number of C-sections. We'll be also looking at parent satisfaction surveys, number of women served, how many prenatal group sessions, how many babies are being breastfed, how many wind up being transitioned to a PI home visiting program, how many referrals to other services and the types, and the screenings for postpartum depression. So let's talk about the selection criteria. There's, I'm going to say, 4 different sections. The first one is the strength of proposed program, and the answers to this, your answers to this are worth 30 points. And so we're looking for in this section is how you clearly define the desired outcomes for the target population that you plan to serve, and how your program demonstrates the effectiveness in addressing their needs and transitioning them to long-term home visiting. We're also looking for how your doula program is supported by a strong national, local, evidence-based best practice. Also, how you demonstrate a clear understanding of your target population, their needs and challenges. Also, how you solicit parent feedback and incorporate it into your delivery plan, your service plan, and your approach to identifying and recruiting pregnant mothers from the target population. So the second section in the application is also worth 30 points, and it's related to performance, outcomes, and quality. And here we're asking for evidence of strong past performance against your desired outcome goals and performance metrics, and or other notable accomplishments in providing services to the target population. Also, we'll be looking for relevant systems and processes needed to track and report performance on program outcomes, including client satisfaction. Whether you have experience using data, how you use it to improve your services, best practices, and also looking at your systems and processes needed to collect and store information and performance data. The next section is organizational capacity. This is worth 25 points. And it looks as whether staff qualifications for responsible for oversight and management, systems and processes to support the monitoring of the program expenditures, fiscal controls, adequate HR capacity to hire and manage staff, expertise in working with the target population, and relevant capabilities or infrastructure needed to serve this group. And your organization reflects and engages the diverse people of the community it serves. And I think this is the last section. It's worth 15 points. And essentially the budget justification. First one is fiscal capacity demonstrated through the budget. Also, you're able to leverage other resources and goods to support the program. Also talks about demonstrating your ability to maintain the ratio that we talked about earlier, home visitors to doulas, and also demonstrate the reasonableness of the costs and your funding request relative to financial and HR. Attachments. So be sure to attach these reports, studies, or other documentation that show performance toward reaching the program goals. Also, please attach resumes and credentials for key staff, which is important. And also be sure to attach the budget. So this is some of the contractual stuff for this RFP. So your first initial contract is going to be from December to June 30th. This is going to be on a similar timeline for those that, if you recall, were funded for block grant funding, PAFA or PI from the RFP. You know that the fiscal year for that, the contract year for that is from July 1st through June 30th. So we're kind of in the middle of that year. So the first period is that one from December through June 30th. And then it's going to be prorated, and then all subsequent awards are going to go through that timeline, which is actually July 1st through June 30th. So that's something we need to fix in this RFP. Let's gotta make a note of that. So maximum number of awards that we're looking for is 6. The projected range of funding is from 80 to 172,000. Our cost per child for this is 4,000, and the number of slots that we project is up to 250. And the number of slots per program is going to be range around 20 to 43. And our total funding available for all these contracts will be $1 million. So let's talk a little bit about selection and timeline. So today, the webinar, the due date for all your questions is the 29th. That will be, along with the questions here and any questions that you email me, will be included in that addendum. The applications will be due on the 24th, and the period will be December 1. So applications are going to be due on the 24th at noon. There are no extensions there. Julia, I think this is where you start, right?
Yep, this is where I start. So welcome. Thank you guys for coming. It's nice to see so many of you here. So now we're going to go over the questions that we had we're going to go over the eProcurement system, how to make an application. So hopefully a lot of you have already done this. Probably I just know some of you are old timers returning to this system. So this will happen, that this will be easy to walk through. Victor, you shared you handed this over to me, and I am not seeing the presentation any longer. So that's going to make it hard for me to.
Hi, Julia, this is Tom.
Hi.
Did you have the PowerPoint you can pull up on your screen?
I sure can. Let me find it. So sorry about that. I'll have just
You can pause showing screen if you have to go into your email and get it. Up under sharing.
There we go. Yes. No, that's You know what? The PowerPoint is on a different computer. So let me just.
Let's see. We can. I can be the presenter. Victor, would you like to make me the presenter?
Perfect.
There we go. I can help guide you through it, Julia.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, I can.
Sounds
More
good.
importantly, can everybody else see the screen? So, as I was saying before this technical glitch, my two things that I really like to say in terms about doing an application and eProcurement is start early and save often. If you've never done business with us, you'll need to register into the iSupplier eProcurement environment. You can do that by going to the City of Chicago's website, and there are all sorts of links in the RFP document for you to do that, and there's links later on, later screens. It's the standard. What we usually say is that, you know, give yourself 5 to 7 business days to get that, to set up. The registration is really easy, but you send it in, and then the Department of Procurement sends you a link to allow you into the system to set up your account. And that sometimes takes a couple of days. We like to tell people, you know, give yourself 5 to 7 business days. I think it never takes, you know, much longer. It never takes 7, usually more like 3, or sometimes that stuff ends up in your spam or spam or junk folders. So if you haven't heard from, you have done this and you haven't seen anything, just check those folders or those, you know, those files to see if that's where the email went. When we developed our RFPs, we developed the scopes and we developed the scope and narrative aspects. From those we develop our selection criteria, and from those we develop our application questions, and from those we kind of look back at the scope, we look back at the criteria, we look at the evaluation questions, and we do our evaluation instrument. So all of these things are aligned, all of these things link up to one another in some way, shape, or form. If you find yourself in the process of answering questions on your application, we really do suggest that you look in the RFP document. I know that a lot of people don't read these documents because they're dense and they're hard to read. They're just very dense documents. But really, I've read a lot of applications over the years where it's pretty evident that people didn't read this and they just sort of wrote whatever they wanted. And it's awesome if what you want is what we're looking for, but if you want to get, if you want to get a contract, if you want to write a good application, please read those narratives. And if you have questions or you're looking for kind of like, well, what aspect should I be highlighting? Look at the evaluation criteria. It's all pretty much in there. There's room for innovation. There's room for thoughtfulness. There's room for experimentation within the parameters of all of our program models. And it's sort of like the application questions give you an opportunity to demonstrate those aspects of your program. And we are looking for, we like to read those things. We love to see a thoughtful application. It's a joy and a pleasure to read. So I encourage you, if you have questions or you're unclear on where we're going with something, to look at that RFP document just as if nothing else, to help guide you and to be a point of reference. You can always reach out to Victor or myself. Victor is the person that's going to be answering your programmatic questions. I'm much more about like, oh, I can't get into eProcurement, or, more nuts and bolts kinds of operational questions. So there you go. Carefully review your selection criteria, read the RFP document. When you're making your application, do understand there's a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. Each response is allotted 4,000 characters. So that goes for like the response called first name, 4,000 characters. The response, like, tell us how you intend to serve the target population, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also 4,000 characters. 4,000 characters ends up being about 2/3 of a page, a single space page. I do tell people there's really, I get into this a little bit later when we go through the submission process, but there's really only one place in eProcurement where you can download your complete application, and even that you're going to get a PDF of it. So I really encourage people, just in terms of building their own files and strong RFP language, do this in Word or whatever your word processing software preference is. Save that copy so that you have something that you can manipulate, something that you can refer to, and some, that's easily accessible for you in a nice format. I know there's been any number of cases where somebody is awarded a contract, they go to contracting, and they're like, don't have what I wrote, because they didn't save a copy of it, and then they missed the one very small button. Once, that allows you to download your application before you submit it. And once you submit it, it kind of gets sucked away. If you miss the deadline, you're working in your application, you'll know that you missed the deadline because your application literally gets sucked away into eProcurement, sort of like never to be seen again. So I really do encourage people to keep, a Word document or word process document of their application so that you know what you submitted. eProcurement works best in the Internet Explorer browser. It was built, it's an Oracle-based platform, and it was built to work best on Internet Explorer. No one that really, increasingly that's not a browser anybody uses, but I can tell you that it works well on Chrome, it works well on Firefox, it works okay in Safari. This is a system that really doesn't crash in the 3 years I've worked with it, and so if you're having problems, you're getting kicked out, etc., chances are that the eProcurement software is not interacting well with whatever is on your computer software. And if you find like you're really having a hard time with it, try it in Internet Explorer and see if that solves any of your problems. Also, do not use the back button on your browser. If you do that, eProcurement will, in fact, pretend that it's working for you, but it won't be saving anything that you do. And so just, so you can navigate by clicking on sort of the things in blue font. Those are always, in eProcurement, those are always things that take you to something else. Use those, don't use the back button, because then you're going to lose all your work. Or whatever, you'll lose whatever you try to do after you've hit the back button. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Tom. If you are going to submit multiple applications for a single RFP, and I don't know if that's, well, maybe that's the case for this one. Lots of RFPs we do, it's not. You need to know that you'll need to set up a unique user account in iSupplier. So, and that they can all be the same email address, but they can't. So basically, if you say you're, gigantic social service provider and you want to submit 3 applications for Doula, you'll go into ginormous social service providers eProcurement account, and you'll set up 3 unique user accounts within that. You don't have to be 3 different businesses, you just have to be one. You set up, one for Bert, one for Ernie, and one for Cookie Monster, and you can all use Cookie Monster's email address. You don't have to use, they don't have to be different that way. And you want to make sure that when you use an email address that you use one that you're going to be checking, or that isn't dead, or you haven't made up, because eProcurement's going to, we send out reminders, we send out amendment information through eProcurement, and if it all goes to some dead account, you're not going to see it, you're going to miss out on that information. So in eProcurement, you can submit your application and pull it back, or later amendment, until the due date, which in this case is November 24th, 2020 at 12 noon. And that's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Anyway, they did say, so if you are worried about, I don't know, you just want to make sure you submitted it, you're worried about that your application's not going to go through, you want to test the system, whatever, you can submit your application and then you can go back in the next day, pull it back out and do whatever you want to do next. I tell people to avoid the rush and possible mishap by submitting early. We all do better with more time. Plan on your submissions taking 30 to 60 minutes. If you're an old timer, I suppose, 50 to 30, but a lot of times you end up with these errors. It takes a minute to figure out what you need to do. It's not, submitting in the eProcurement is not just a click and whoosh, it's gone. Late applications will not be accepted. I think everybody knows this by now. So your late application, once that noon hour hits, that minute really, your application needs to be in, and if it's not in, it will be sucked away into the eProcurement vault, as far as I can tell. And the only way that we can accept a late application is if we reopen the RFP, make everybody who applied to reapply, and that we really don't want to do that. We really don't like doing that, and we have under very rare circumstances, but I wouldn't bank on it as a strategy. There is an eProcurement hotline, and it's 312-744-HELP. The hotline operates Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So if you're having problems with eProcurement, you can't get a hold of me, you can call them. You can also email them at customersupport@cityofchicago.org, and that email is both in the RFP, but also on other further down, I think maybe on the next slide, Tom. You can call me, you can email me about these questions, you can call, or you can call the eProcurement hotline as well, or email them. And we all try to get back to you as soon as possible. I really have a commitment to getting back to people within 24 hours. The hotline will do 48 hours, but just, we really want to make sure that you have all the support that you need to do a good application and to get it into us. So if you're a new agency, just a heads up, you will need to provide us with some some documentation. A lot of this is required when you set up your eProcurement account. If you do not have these things, give me a call. We we often have other ways of getting you into the system if we really need to. The one thing that you really do need is that FIN number, that number 2, the IRS affirmation number. We need to know that you are capable of doing business in this country, if not in Illinois. And without this, you really need to have a fiscal agent. And submitting under a fiscal agent is fine. That is totally copacetic. We do that all the time. But that means that you're going to need to make the application under that fiscal agent's name, because we need to enter into a contract with the person who made the application, so somebody else can kind of apply on your behalf. You can do the you can write the application and put it through an account that's set up under their FIN number. That's perfectly fine, but you can't really apply under your name and then be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be using my cousin's business's FIN number. That's going to end up being very difficult that's a difficult fix. It's better to do it this way do it right up front. So if you have questions, please give me a call on this. I think we're going to go to the next slide now. That's all I have to say. So in terms of technical assistance, as I said, there's plenty of resources. You can go to the alert section of the DFSS website. That's where we post a lot of our updates and information about RFPs. You can call the helpline, 744-HELP. You can email customer support. If you don't want to talk to people, which sometimes we don't, there are a lot of training materials and videos at the City of Chicago iSupplier online training materials page. Those are usually helpful. And now I'm going to walk you through 2 things that pretty much everybody needs to do to make a successful application in eProcurement: accepting an amendment, and then also submitting your application. So we generally amend all of our RFPs for no other reason than to put the webinar PowerPoint up there. So if you have questions about the webinar or you want to just review it, that will be a part of the amendment. that we do. If you haven't started an application, you'll need to acknowledge and accept the amendment first. And then, or if you have already started an application, which I looked at, guess 2 or 3 of you actually already had, good for you. I love you all. Then you're going to accept the amendment and go back into your started application. When you've started the application, when you accept the amendment, what it does is it pulls everything from the application that you have started into the newly amended RFP so that you don't lose any of your work. So in this particular screen, you're going to see how do you start. So if you wanted to start an application, you're going to go to this actions bar on the right-hand side and hit create a quote. If you have already started, you're going to view the amendment history. And then we'll go to the next slide, and I can show you how we start doing that. So to begin this acceptance and acknowledgement process, you can look at the RFP. Everything in blue and eProcurement pretty much goes to something. If you want to look at the RFP itself, you click on the thing I labeled number 1. It's in the document number, and that's going to open the new RFP for you. You can see in the middle here, there's a little 1 sentence that talks about what's in the amendment. And then if you want to review the changes, that's looking at the amendment document itself, which is separate from the RFP. You're going to just hit this little eyeglasses or infinity icon, and that will let you look at the amendment document itself. So like say you wanted to look at the webinar, you would hit review changes, and then it will be a PDF document that says, this amendment does X, Y, and Z, and the webinar is generally, sometimes I upload it as a separate document, but most of the time it's in the body of the amendment itself. And then when you have seen everything you need to see, you acknowledge the amendment by hitting the acknowledge amendment box on the upper or lower right-hand corners of the page. And that will take you into a process where you basically are going to be accepting and acknowledging a lot of things for like 4 more screens. So let's get started with that. That's fun. So after you've clicked acknowledging the amendment, you're going to get to this screen and you're going to click on the box that say I accept the terms and conditions of the RFQ. So basically, we really want you to make sure that you're well aware of what the changes that have been made to this RFP, and that you are well aware of that you're going to be held responsible for those changes. After you click the box, you hit acknowledge, and then that will take you to this following screen where you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment, just in case you weren't sure. So hit yes for that. If you hit no on any of these things, it's just going to take you back to the beginning, just in case you wanted to know that. So you're going to hit the yes that you confirmed the acknowledgement of the amendment, and then it will take you to the next screen, step 5, where you confirm that you confirm your acknowledgement of such. And then you hit yes again, and then you are finally to the point where you are going to acknowledge and accept the terms and conditions. So you're going to check the box at the bottom, and then you're going to hit the accept button over on the right-hand side, and that will have meant that you have accepted the amendment, and then I believe it will throw you into your RFP application, or if you haven't started it yet, to a screen where you can start. So we do an amendment for pretty much every RFP. So everybody will get to do this if they submit a application. So this is how to submit an application. We're going to talk about, you've come to the end, you're ready, you're a day early or hours early, and you're ready to submit. So you'll have been working feverishly on your application, and you will be in the place where you save, because why not compulsively save? And then you're going to hit continue, and that will start the application, the submission process. So when you hit continue, you'll go to step 2. And that is when you hit continue, basically eProcurement's like, oh, hey, they're getting ready to submit, and it goes through your entire application and it sees if you're missing stuff. And then you'll get an error message, or you won't, but they're easier to get than not. You might get like 6 of these, and it will tell you what you need. It will tell you what things what things eProcurement considers that you have done wrong or have missing. They generally fall into the 2 examples I'm going to give you. One, this first one, we can do the next slide where I do a close-up. It says you must quote on at least 1 line of the RFQ lines, and you look down right below it, it says there's this little lines tab. You're going to go into lines, and at this point, the department requires that you submit a budget or a cost proposal to us. You upload that as a separate document. The lines is something that comes into play later in the contracting process. We like it if you just put some kind of placeholder number in every line. And so that, that's one of those kind of weird little glitches in eProcurement. So this will say, you have to quote on each one, quote at least 1 line in the RFQ. You'll do that. So we'll go next to step 4, this next slide. So this one is the quote value is required for the requirement first to name. In this case, quote value is your answer. So this is it's a lot of like eProcurement speak. Requirements is the word for the application questions. So the application questions are requirement, the quote value is the answer, and in this case, the quote value refers to the missing answer under the requirement named first name. And so then you just go in and you type in first name, and there you go. So a lot of time, I think we've fixed many of the glitches, but if you get these quote value things, they're really just saying like your application question, there's something that we don't like about it. So after you have gotten rid of all of your errors and you are really ready to submit, this is sort of why I tell people it's 30 to 60 minutes, because you get these errors and it takes a little while to figure out what they want. No one's expecting the eProcurement. Well, now, some people probably are because they've done it many times, but they're not going through. You don't expect to have the machine being like, no, we don't like this. But we do. It wants you to be thorough. So let's go to the next slide. So you're ready. So your application is free from errors, and you're ready to proceed and submit. And at this point, you clicking continue should put your application into the review and submit phase. And from then on, it's going to basically, the review and submit phase is going to show you your entire application in one really, really long scrollable screen. So this is your last chance to review all your data and confirm that it's accurate. You're going to check your attachments. You can check the attachments. You can scroll to, and you can see all of your responses. And this is your opportunity to actually, check your own work as opposed to having eProcurement do it. At the bottom of that, you're going to see in the next slide, there's an opportunity for you to submit your application. So the next slide is going to show you this, the electronic signature. You're going to be asked to provide an electronic signature, and then be sure to fill in the signature before checking the box. If you do check the box first, you'll get an error message. And so then after you do that, you're going to be ready to go. You'll see here in the lower the right-hand corner, there's like printable, and it's get cut off. I think in the next slide, you'll have the ability, you can see this, you have printable view, right, it's kind of below the arrow. So this is the place where if you want to get a PDF of what you're submitting to us, you hit printable view and it will give you a PDF of that. If you don't want that view, just hit the submit button, and you will get, after you click submit, you will have submitted, you'll get this confirmation screen. Now, we now have a new feature this year is within 24 hours, eProcurement will send you a confirmation to the email listed in listed to the application that you made. If you want something more immediate, do give me a call or email me, and I am happy to check and confirm verbally, or send you a screenshot that we have received your application. So that's not a problem, especially if most people really do submit the day of. Every time an RFP comes in, my morning is spent mostly just like making sure that, watching people making their applications more or less, and making sure that everybody is, has the support that they need. So it's really not a problem. So just call or email me, and I can, if you are worried or if you're confident that you'll get your confirmation email within 24 hours. So that pretty much concludes what I have to say about eProcurement and making an application. We're now at the point where we can take questions. Let's see. Here's some questions. So most of these, so here we go. It says, we're going to start here if you're ready, Victor. The RFP mentions a doula to home visitor ratio of 1:3. Our current contract requires a 1:2 ratio, and we believe that is reflective of best practices for programs pairing doula and home visiting. Is 1:3 the expected ratio, or is there flexibility for agencies with 1:2? So Victor, is that, you'll have to unmute yourself, but, oh, I see here, there is something, somebody else says that it's ISB language, but Victor, maybe you can speak to this, or Tom, since I don't really know much about this ratio.
Yeah, I can talk about it. There's another similar question here from Mark. It says, I believe the 3-to-1 home visiting ratio is a result of using ISB language. That's true. The model actually calls for a 2-to-1 ratio. Okay, so that's interesting. That's being implemented across the state. He sent us our rationale to Tom, and also spoken to ISB and agreed that the 2-to-1 is optimal. So I'm hoping that there can be some flexibility. So the answer to that, the 3-to-1 ratio came from the ISB RFP last year. So I know I've gotten quite a couple of questions about can they do 2-to-1 ratio. The short answer is I'm not sure. I don't know. I have to go back to the leadership here to see if that's something that we can do. I'll also do a little bit more research on it. Anecdotally, I would caution again, doing something that's against what ISB seems to have put out in their RFP. So just trying to see if there's a way to balance that without putting the program at a disadvantage. We were able to do, administrations change. We were able to subcontract for a little while. We're not able to do that anymore. We were able to do innovative programs. We're not able to do that anymore. So I think my first instinct would be to set everybody up the best possible situation, so to be as successful as we can. But yeah, this is definitely something we can look into, and we'll do an amendment if we can.
Okay, so the turnaround on this contract is fairly short. With our current contract ending 11/30, does DFSS anticipate that contracts will be executed by 12/1 or commitments be in place?
Yeah, so these are going to be due the 24th. So getting commitments in place by 12/1 is going to be a stretch. We're going to work as hard as we can to get these commitments out the door as soon as possible.
Right. And then I think, there was some follow-up. That Mark commented, contract might not be executed. Will it be possible to give awardees some notification that they will receive a contract and that payments will be retroactive to December 1st so that if an existing program receives an award, they won't need to stop services or lay people off.
Yeah, I think the best answer I can give to that is that if you have currently or recently a contract with the city, it's going to be a quicker process to get you a contract. If this is your first time contracting with the city, I would assume that there will be going to be delays in getting you a contract just because of the time that it takes to get all the required documentation in for that. I think the other thing I'd like to say also in reference to that is, it took a lot of work to get to this point. This RFP was in a precarious position not too long ago, so getting here is just an accomplishment. And so I think I'd rather be having this conversation than a much different one that we've had with other programs about just not being able to do it. So let's go to the next question.
Okay. So as it relates to community areas we want to serve, are we able to apply for the entire city of Chicago, or do we have to identify each community area or zip code?
Well, Scott, I think I know you want to serve the entire city, and I think that's great. I think one of the things that we want to see is where, if there are any communities that you plan to target, and does that match with the communities that we have listed here that we want to target?
All right. Right. So this is what we have for questions. Will this webinar and/or PowerPoint be available online after today? The webinar will be, and PowerPoint, we generally list a link to the webinar on the DFSS website. The PowerPoint is going to be part of the amendment, and that will be, usually comes out within a week. So that's, so it will be online after today, but it won't be online like tomorrow. It will be online in a week. So are there other questions that people have? These are good questions. Here we go. I want to echo Mark's comments about notification of awards. Is it possible to provide current contract extensions for current providers until award decisions are made, so that we do not have to retain staff, so that we do not retain staff if we are not fortunate enough to receive an award? Can you provide us with an estimated time when you speak to administration to inform us about the 3-to-1 ratio? We have staff that may have to be laid off if the 3-to-1 ratio stays.
So Scott, we don't have the ability. That's why we're RFPing. We don't have the ability to extend anymore. We are out of extensions for these contracts. That's why we have to RFP. And the other question is about the 3-to-1 ratio. We'll try to have an answer for you as soon as we can.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. So are there other questions? Comments? Do you have any estimate of how long it will take to provide notice of awards?
Not right now, Scott, I don't.
No, I mean, please understand that we want to get this in place as quickly as possible. That being said, the city is not always noted for its speediness. But we will try to get these reviewed and and decisions made as quickly as humanly possible so that there aren't disruptions in services. Will there be training available for COPA?
Yes, absolutely.
And then, who is the ultimate decision maker about the questions we have asked today at DFSS? I think this would be specifically in reference to the ratio, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so Scott, I'm going to take it back to the leadership team here, and then we're going to go from there. Obviously, we may have to get DPS involved as well, just to inform them. So it may go through one layer, it may go through two layers.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're welcome. Are there any other questions that that anybody wants to pose? No? If that is, if there aren't any other questions, then we thank you all for coming. We all wish that maybe this, this back end on the contracting aspect or decision-making aspect of the timeline was a little bit longer, but we'll all just try to do the best we can. In terms of programmatic questions, you can call or email Victor, myself, and our email addresses and phone numbers are up on the screen now. I wish you a safe time and that and an easy application. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions. We are here to help, and best of luck. Look for that amendment. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you everybody for joining us today, and hopefully you can join us on this journey together.
Yes.
Thank you.